Welcome to The Line. Amazon agreed last year to begin collecting tax on sales to their online customers here in New Mexico. And while local governments started looking forward to that extra revenue, they may never see any of it. That's because the deal with Amazon was only for collecting state sales tax. That would be at 5.125%, and not the extra amount that cities add on, which in Albuquerque is another 2.375%. A little confusing, but we'll get to it. Here to talk about this and other topics of the week, have our Line Opinion panelist, Rachel Sams, editor of Albuquerque Business First. Michael Bird's back with us. He's a public health consultant and past president of the American Public Health Association. Former State Senator Eric Griego is back. And our friend Julianne Grimm, she's editor of the Santa Fe Reporter. Now, Rachel, Amazon may not be totally to blame here. There's a lot of loopholes. It's very tricky, but it seems clear that tax reform is getting a little more serious on the table because of this. People are now, funny how that works. When you're losing out on money,
yes.
People have a way to kind of get with the program here. What's your overall sense of this as it's working now?
Yeah, this is really interesting. At Business First, we've been trying to get an answer to the question of how much Amazon is paying in tax in New Mexico for almost a year.
I see.
So we had put in public records requests with the state, and we got back a response that said these Amazon entities have registered with the state with no mention of what they paid. So when we followed up, they said, well, you all can't see that because you're not a taxpayer representative for them. And a lot of states actually treat company taxpayer information as proprietary and won't release it. But the Legislative Finance Committee has estimated that Amazon might pay $10 to $30 million statewide annually.
Okay. That's pretty big. That's pretty good swing, though.
It's a big chunk of change. And in Albuquerque, they're estimating that they're missing out on $5 million a year. So at a time when you're in a budget hole, obviously that money really adds up. So I'm very curious to see whether and how this comes out in the legislature.
That's a good point there. Mayor Keller, Eric Griego, has come out and said, look, we're missing out on something here. We need some changes. I mean, that extra 2.375, we're talking millions of dollars. That adds up over time. And then you factor in hold harmless is gone. Do you know what I mean? A lot of revenue streams are gone. So how important is this?
It is. I'm really glad Mayor Keller's taking it up. When we were in the Senate together, this was the one tax bill that I could get out of the Corporations Committee in the Senate because that was the place that tax bills went to die. We couldn't get, frankly, a bipartisan committee to really approve of this. But this was one that we thought was reasonable. Unfortunately, the governor, we never got it to the governor's desk. Again, it was a bipartisan group that sort of killed it. And then I think it's a sweetheart deal. The governor negotiated the sweetheart deal with Amazon to sort of exclude municipalities. At the same time, they've been asking municipalities to pay more taxes. So I think it's absurd, and it's really, people need to understand police, fire, basic services, that costs money, and to have this out-of-state, internet retailer not only hurting small businesses, but essentially not paying to have the police respond is kind of, it's anathema. So I'm hoping that we get at least the $5 million. I'd like to see him pay some back taxes if it were up to me.
Oh, that's a point. I hadn't thought about that. Some back taxes. What do you think the political viability of that could be?
Well, I hope people will think about that when they go to the polls in June and November. Are people willing to say, look, nobody loves taxes, but at the very least, if you're for small businesses, if you're a strong local economy, and if you want to improve public safety, that costs money, right? And do we pay it as taxpayers, or should these out-of-state retailers? At the time, I will say, that there was a good effort to say, you're sticking it to the taxpayer because they get this little benefit from going online. Well, there's a whole education that has to happen around, like, do we support local businesses, and are we willing to pay our fair share to have those basic services?
That's right. Fairness is an issue, Michael. I appreciate the Senator bringing up that word. I mean, I use Amazon, a lot of us do for certain things, but there is an impact on local business. There is an impact on other things that we have to sort of consider. Is this a fair way? Is this equity to you, a fair way to give back from Amazon to have this happen this way?
I don't. First of all, I guess the question is, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I mean there's a story there, I'm sure, but I guess secondary to that is also the fact that, as Eric has mentioned, it impacts all of these cities and all of these communities, and specifically Albuquerque, and it's. We need infrastructure in the state. We need infrastructure in Albuquerque. There's so many challenges here in Albuquerque that why should they get a free pass? It kind of makes you have to wonder, how did this happen and why is it going on? And to Eric's point, let's do what we can to fix it.
Bring a little more
Well-
equity to this. You know, Julianne, the idea that physical presence has always been sort of a hang-up on this. Amazon doesn't have a headquarters, any kind of presence here, but Walmart does. Target does, all the retailers that and they have mail order kind of things as well. So it's a little tricky. How do you see this all playing out? I mean, this is a tough one to get your arms around.
It is antiquated.
Yeah.
Like many systems, laws that we have in place in our state, they don't keep pace with the times. And so this idea that it matters what the physical presence is, that where the seller is located is really what our tax laws are based on, rather than where the buyer is located. Because of course there's a technical solution for Amazon to be able to identify where you are receiving these goods and tax you appropriately. But I think this question of political will is really the important one. And I like the idea that small businesses are having a voice in this, because really when you're already losing shoppers because of the convenience factor. And I do think that people are shopping online because of the convenience factor. And I don't know that we would see a big outcry or a big impact to the consumer if they were asked to pay their local district tax rate, because they still want that thing to come in the mail rather than having to put on real pants and go to the store.
Yep. That's a fair point. Absolutely. I don't think it's going to be, Rachel, I don't think I agree with that extra sales tax. We're so used to paying it anyway.
Yeah.
What would the harm be?
It's really true.
Exactly right.
It's very interesting. I think that I've seen a really strong buy local movement in New
Right.
Mexico, even by corporations, which is
Right.
really interesting. So I think that might end up having some play in this. We've even seen local bank presidents from national banks
Right.
saying, you should be buying your stuff here.
That's right.
So I think that sentiment is probably going to play out as there's more debate over this.
The idea, Rachel, that they're trying to get their arms around what to charge the actual sellers themselves. Is it a pass-through? Do you know what I mean? And in New Mexico, that's a little complicated right now. We've had, pyramid taxing. It's been a problem for us for a long, long time. Do you see any upside, downside for local retailers if, in fact, this comes to be that they're going to end up charging sales tax on their own sales? You know what I mean? And passing that right through Amazon. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I just think that there is that hunger by local businesses to see, they feel like the underdog, and they'll say we have the best customer service, but I think more and more of them are kind of feeling like no matter what they do, they're slipping behind. So I do think there's that hunger to really push for let's have some parity between the national and local tax structure.
That's right. Eric, let me go back to something I asked Julianne about. You were part of the whole pushback then about Walmart and other big entities having a break here. Big boxes just basically got a break. The politics of how that came to be. We finally started doing some taxation with them. Is that working in your view? And do you see some carryover to this Amazon thing? Is that the same approach going to work here?
Well, I agree. There's all these sort of arcane, I think artificial legal and financial sort of tax decisions that are made to really, and at the end of the day, they're trying to avoid paying taxes. Look, Amazon is massive. There are a lot of local retailers who you have to or encouraged to get into the online world to try to offer their services online. So you can get, there's some great retailers, you can get, chili shipped to DC or whatever from a local retailer. The problem is when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar worldwide sort of distribution retailer like Amazon, they have such a huge advantage in terms of economies of scale. To also give them an added benefit of having tax-free status at the local level. And by the way, they're not doing this across the country. They're fighting this out at the local and the state level all across the country. They're going to get the best deal they can. I'm yet to hear the argument for why we should essentially subsidize probably the biggest online retailer on earth. I don't know if Alibaba is, I don't think anywhere close, but they're massive. And if anything, I mean, again, I'm going to sound like a tax and spend liberal here, but there's an argument to be made that they actually ought to be paying a little bit more given their advantage. If they really want to sort of support local retailers, is there something they could do to really sort of show that they're committed to this community as opposed to like, sort of just getting tax-free status from Albuquerque and sort of like not really honoring local business and local employment. They don't have any physical employees here.
Right.
And if you're about job creation, you're an elected official, you should really be saying like, You show me the jobs, right? Show me the
Right.
employment effect.
That's right. That's an interesting point there. A little bit extra. That's interesting. Last point here, Michael. We have got a U.S. Supreme Court decision looming in June that could clarify all of this. They're going to wrestle this idea of how to tax across. Is that the right place for this to be? Is this so big it has to be a federal issue at this point, and the states shouldn't be slogging this out state by state? Does that make more sense to you?
It would seem to me negotiation is better than going to that, using that as the only other alternative. But just one thing I wanted to mention, I
Please.
think it really speaks to the quality of life. What quality of life does it leave Albuquerque and other cities in? What kind of quality of life do we want? As was mentioned, again, Eric referenced the fact that Amazon employees do not live, go to school here, raise families here, and it's wonderful for them, but what about the quality of life for people who live here in Albuquerque, day in and day out? And if they're not contributing to that, then they're undermining that, because in terms of this process.
Interesting point there. Julianne, take one cut at this, if you would. The feds coming down with this, a Supreme Court ruling to get some clarification on this. Is that the right way to go in your view?
I mean, I think that if you're looking at each state legislature having to create a tax code that accommodates collection of these taxes, I'm not sure that the Supreme Court decision, whichever way it goes, I mean, it's a very small part of this bigger issue. So I'm not hopeful that that's going to win it.
Yeah,
for
we'll see
us.
how that turns out for New Mexico. Exactly right. We'll have to end that there. When we come back to the line, we'll talk about gaming revenue taken from Pojoaque Pueblo.